How's everybody doing? What'd you do? Sure. I have to say, did I miss something? Are you up here? If you were jumping around or something? Why'd you slam your foot in the car door? I always ask my kids that. Why'd you do that? I asked Susan that too, but it's not as funny. Going to continue on tonight talking about revival series. And last week I talked about the are you ashamed of the gospel? Tonight what I want to do, I want to take and I want to talk to you about a simple phrase, just 4 words. Turn to Genesis 16:13, brother, if we could. Just 4 little words in the King James that really will totally alter the way you approach life. At least it should. The King James, please. All right. And she called the name of the Lord that spoken to her, Thou God seest me. And this is the story of Hagar. We may be familiar with what happened to Hagar. Hagar is the handmaid of Sarah. And God has promised Abraham a child. And it doesn't seem to be working. They've been waiting a while, so they've decided to take matters into their own hands. And so Sarah goes, well, look, you go lay with my handmaiden Hagar. She's a lot younger. She'll conceive. Abraham does. Hagar gets pregnant. And Sarah doesn't like the dynamics, how that changes the relationship. And so Sarah decides to send Hagar out into the desert, essentially, be gone. She runs away. She's hard on her, and so she leaves. Hagar leaves. That's a better way of putting it. And Hagar is out there, and she has an encounter with the living God. And the phrase, Thou God seest me. You know, that is either encouragement or fear. Thou God seest me. If you need God to do something for you, hey, here I am. Here I am, God. But if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, it's fear that God would see you. I'm going to talk to you about that tonight. Thou God seest me. There's hardly a greater restraining power in the world than to know that you're being watched. Let me give some dynamics. If I'm up here preaching and all of a sudden I just start staring at Daniel. I'm preaching right at Daniel. Just don't take my eyes off of him. Well, we know a couple of things are going to happen. Daniel's going to act like he's paying the most incredible attention in the world. He will probably even get a piece of paper out. He'll probably borrow a pen and act like he's taking notes. The pastor's taking notes. That's different, okay? But what I'm saying is, if I'm looking right at Daniel and he knows I'm eyeballing him, he's going to do everything in his power to look like he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's not just going to start nodding off with me looking at him. Why is that? Because he wants to be on his best behavior. We all would. I'd do the same thing. If he's preaching, he's looking at me, I'd do the same thing. It's nothing about who's doing the talking and who's doing the sitting. It's about just, if somebody's watching you, you take care to know what you're doing. I shared with some people, we had somebody come over, a little girl come over and play with Danielle this week, and it was an absolute disaster. It was an absolute disaster. It was horrible. Yeah, sometimes I think people forget that I'm a believer in separation. I really am. I don't want people around my kids. If you're going to be cussing, you're going to be acting all up, I don't want that. And when you have an 8-year-old that curses, that's a sign to me that something's wrong somewhere. 8-year-olds normally don't do that. And then, of course, they did the unpardonable almost. Well, it's not the unpardonable sin. That's a bad choice of words. It's as near as you can get to the unpardonable sin in the Jenkins family is when you lie to Sister J. You don't lie to my wife. You don't lie to my wife. Little girl came in, and Danielle's got pretty good spiritual sensitivities, and she wanted to play some game that involved death or something. I don't know what it was, some kid's game or some kid's game about death. Great. And Daniel said, I don't think my mother would like to see me play that. So the little girl comes in the house and asks Susan whether or not Daniel can play the Daniel. Susan goes, no, go play something else. Little girl walked right outside. Susan kind of tailed behind her. And little girl goes, your mommy says it's okay. That ended quick. You see, how often do we do things? I got news, that girl wouldn't have done that if she knew Susan was right behind her. Because if you know somebody's watching you, how you behave and what you do. We had all these people like call and say they wanted to come to church so bad, but because of the storm, they just couldn't do it. You know, by the time church started, there wasn't a drop falling except for what was coming off the roof. I'm preaching to you. You're here. I don't need to tell you that. And we talked about it. Well, we're going to cancel church tonight. I said, well, the bars are open. I said, and the malls are open. So if the bars are open and the malls are open, we ought to be open, shouldn't we? I mean, should we cancel church if they're open? I mean, come on. Thou, God, seest me. This is something that will warn us against slack and carelessness by reminding you of a sober fact. Maybe sober, maybe rejoicing. You're being watched every second of every day. You can't get away from it. You cannot get away that God is watching and recording everything that you're saying or doing. Let's look at a few points tonight. I will not be long. First, point number 1, your every act, small or great, at home or abroad, both day and night, are seen by God in the clearest light. What people do in the darkness of night are seen by the light of God in perfection. He has 20/20 light. Well, those kind of glasses I see the military guys have, the night vision goggles. God does not need night vision goggles. He can see perfectly. In the verse, Psalm 139:12 says, yea, the darkness hideth not from thee, but the night shineth as the day. I've told this story before years ago. It's been a few years now. I was in my 40s, which tells you about it. But in my 40s, having been in the martial arts for 25 years at that point, and I decided I wanted to learn this Brazilian jiu-jitsu stuff. And the Brazilians had a different approach to martial arts. A lot of martial arts, you just do some forms, break some stuff, and they give you a belt. Or you put these little pads on and play tag with each other, they give you a belt. But in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you got to go fight people, and you have to beat them to get your belt. And so there I was in my mid-40s, getting on a plane and flying out to California to train with a Brazilian. And it was in Rancho Cucamonga, which was about an hour outside of L.A. And Susan, of course, was here, and I was out there. And somebody said to me, well, you went to L.A., didn't you? No. Oh, come on. You out that close to L.A.? You didn't go to L.A.? No, I didn't go to L.A. Come on, you tell me the truth. I know you went to L.A. I said, because I'm a married man. My wife is 3,000 miles away. There's nothing in L.A. for a married man with his wife 3,000 miles away but trouble. Now, could my wife see me? No. I could have done whatever I wanted to do. But there was somebody with vision that was perfect that would have seen every move I made. You see, and if you keep that in the forefront, that everything you're doing is being seen, it will change everything in the way you live and the way you act and everything you do. Point 2. Your Maker, Redeemer, and Judge is a silent listener to your every conversation and is keeping an account of all your words. By thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. Folks, let's ponder that for a moment. Everything you say, He is a silent observer in your home. He hears what you say. I mean, Susan has sessions with husbands and wives, and of course she doesn't tell me anything about what goes on in those sessions. But I also have had a fair amount of counseling opportunities with people. Probably counseled over 1,000 couples, between handling a lot of divorce cases and things such as that. And folks, I'll tell you something. What a husband and a wife will say to each other is generally something